What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the GASOCast. I felt like it was only right that when you're down in San Antonio, you got two dudes from the city that kind of know how this thing works. Myself, Michael Timmins, and Tim Littlefield. Tim, kind of discuss your thoughts on yesterday's GASO Fall Tour here in the city.
It was really good to see. A lot of people were out. Obviously, when GASO comes to town, everybody's trying to see what's coming up for the upcoming high school season. And it was good to see, especially when you have Lake Travis, when you have Brennan, when you have two of the top teams in the state, when you have the other programs, that are really strong, and then you have the upcoming programs bringing a lot of attendance out. Everybody kind of wants to see the new buzz that's going on, so it was really good to kind of see the attendance from that standpoint, and also the players, stepping up to the challenge.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, I was talking with Lyndon on another segment that we were doing, was in years past, if you just give a list of all the San Antonio teams, there's a few that are like always the ones that kind of rise to the top. Now you have some of these programs, you're like, oh, they're really about to make a statement here in San Antonio. You talk about the John Jays, you talk about the Sotomayors. Give me some of those other teams that in years past may have not been at the top level, but, they're starting to make a big name for themselves.
When you talk about Sotomayor being a relatively new school, first year was last year. Coach Joseph is over there doing a really good job with them. And you can kind of see, they're flying around, they're making plays, and they're enjoying playing together. Had a big win yesterday at the buzzer and a buzzer beater for them. So I know it was exciting for their program to start to see themselves, some of their fruits of their labor starting to come to fruition from their hard work, kind of paying off standpoint. And then you have your consistence with your Reagans, and then, you have your Harlans, who has been a historical playoff team, since they've kind of opened up. They got some new additions, with Niles Carter, and then they got some 27s, Josiah Jones, and also Jordan Mangum, that's going to play some factor, into their rotation. So it's interesting to see those programs, get involved, and you have your Steels, and people like that are kind of making noise, coming back into where they used to be as well.
What's something that surprised you yesterday?
Surprise, I would say.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this off camera, so this is straight, like whatever pops into your mind. What's something that surprised or like you weren't expecting to see?
Westlake looked pretty good. They're always well coached. They come out. Lucero's one of the best in the state. He's always had his programs, ready. But, throughout the course of the years, with the amount of players that they've lost, he said, okay, at some point in time, they're gonna start to take a hit. He has them ready. He has a lot of kids, that are under the radar, still making shots, still playing the game the right way. So for them to kind of hang around and do the things, that they do, winning games the way that they're accustomed to winning, playing together, not really a true star per se, but just, collectively doing what they're asked to do.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into some players. I know you and I love the next gen because that tells you enough about a city to where, okay, they may be good now, but what's coming? Because if you're next gen, and when we talk about next gen, we're talking about our freshmen, our second-year players, sophomores, eighth graders coming up. Give me the landscape of some 2026s to start off with that you liked from yesterday.
26ers, Jamel Garland stood out to me yesterday, from Samuel Clemens. He's a really solid point guard. I've been kind of watching him, from a next-gen standpoint over the last couple of years, but then kind of seeing what he's maturing into, seeing him really kind of put it on the floor, but then also, make the right reads. But then when he's available, he's knocking down shots, getting to the mid-range, looking more fluid and more comfortable about what he's trying to get done. So it was good to kind of see him, progressing. Ethan Bailu was another kid that kind of stood out to me from O'Connor. He's now starting to come into his own. I know last year, speaking with Coach Jawasko at O'Connor, he talked about him, kind of slow playing and bringing him along slowly. And now you're starting to see some of his skill set that they were raving about starting to kind of come into play. And then Mason Thomas, is one that we've kind of been taking a look at, playing with, a program, during the club season that, we watch quite a bit. And he's standing out, for the Piper team, that is going to make some noise, in their district. Will probably, make a solid push for the playoffs, although they're in a very tough district. And we'll talk about a team in that district later on. But to see those 26ers kind of stand out, and there was a few other ones that kind of stood out and did some good things as well.
So when you talk about 26s, a lot of those guys you named had some varsity experience. Now when you look at 2027s, before we start to give some names off, you as an evaluator, you're not expecting the world out of these 2027s, but what are you looking for out of them in like a stage just like early on in the fall with their varsity teams?
Poise level, seeing how they're going to adjust to the speed of the game, the physicality of the game, different things. And then the other aspect of that is just kind of seeing how they're going to deal with a little bit of adversity. You know, they might get a ball or two poke loose. They might miss an open shot or different things like that, or just something may not occur in their favor. How do they deal with that adversity? You know, some tough coaching that they may get, or the other team, you know, kind of seeing a little bit of a blood in the water, if you will, kind of coming after them. How do they deal with those type of situations is going to pretty much tell how they're going to progress and move forward throughout the season, because they're going to deal with a little bit. And also the IQ and the feel that they have, you know, as far as what's going on. Are they seeing things, you know, that they need to see at the rate and the speed that they need to see?
Well, without further ado, you were pretty excited that you came up with, like, when you were like, do you know how many of these 2027s were making impacts? So go ahead and list off some of them.
So we were talking a little bit about them, and it's ironic, you know, with us, you know, talking about next-gen kids and who's going to make an impact or so on and so forth. But I would say Josiah Jones, Jordan Mangum, both from Harlan, have kind of carved out a little role for themselves. Josiah Jones, we've seen, you know, playing 17U ball a little bit during the summertime, and so we've kind of seen him make some plays. Kid doesn't blink, you know, so we're really excited to kind of see some things we saw in the summer now kind of coming to play in the high school season. Armani Francis is a kid, you know, with his broad shoulders. He's physical, can defend multiple positions, so he's going to go out and fill out a role for Brennan that, you know, they're going to ask him to do. And I think, you know, from the coaching and different things that he's got during the club time and also during the high school season, he's going to kind of be ready for that role. But he's definitely going to be a name for people to be paying attention to closely. Mac Martin, Buda Johnson is a kid that can knock it down. He's got, you know, really long arms, you know, really quick trigger, can really shoot it from with a lot of range. Good size on him, 6'2", 6'3". Jordan Rodriguez, Southwest Legacy, another shot maker type kid. And then Shea McCarty at TMI, standing about 6'4", 6'5". Good length. Touched it quite a bit last night and was very, very productive with his touches. So it was very intriguing to kind of see how he was progressing and how involved he was, especially with him, you know, just coming in as a freshman year. And then Tyler Jackson, very, very herky-jerky type kid, man. Really, really good separation. Understands what he's trying to do, though. So it's those type of kids that understand, hey, this is how I'm going to be able to kind of get my game off. This is what I'm going to be able to do in these type of situations and not be afraid of the moment.
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, at this point with the progression level of these 2027s, week by week, we're going to be adding new names to this list. So let's get out of next gen and give me some teams, just straight teams that impressed you yesterday, because there was a buzz around the gym for some of these teams on your list, and I want you to kind of break it down.
Sotomayor stands out. You know, saw them a little bit during the summertime, but then, you know, looking at them up close now, being that they've been able to be under Coach Joseph now for, you know, a few weeks of school, what they're going to be doing, you know, preseason-wise, their length stands out. You know, that's the first thing. And then their athleticism kind of cracks at you. So you take a good peek at them and kind of see that, okay, you know, knowing the district that they're lined up in, they could possibly push for a playoff spot. You know, everybody, you know, obviously has Brennan as the front runner, but Sotomayor is going to definitely be a team that may make some noise in that particular district. So
Absolutely.
they'll be interesting. And then we have Veterans Memorial. You know, they're another group that
Yeah.
I don't know how they fly under the radar. I don't know how they're not talked about enough. But Coach Pettis is doing a really, really solid job with those guys. You know, the way that they fly around, and they could care less who's scoring the ball just as long as their team is scoring. But defensively, they get it done. They make it complicated on you because they come after you. You know, we talk about Demarion Dennis, you know, the UT Corpus commit, you know, well-deserved. That kid plays hard, but he's very, very humble. And I think that exudes what they teach over at the school. But then they got other guys, you know, Giante Jones, you know, you talk about Devin McLeod and Javay Mayweathers, you know, those guys there, they're dudes within their own right. And then, you know, they got other players too, you know, DJ Jordan, you know, solid little PG, was a 26, you know, now on the scene, you know, playing hard now, has a leadership role from a point guard standpoint, you know, a solid prospect.
I think looking at Veterans Memorial, if you just go look at the final scores from yesterday, that shows you how deep they are. And I was talking to Lyndon on our other segment, and the thing about Demarion Dennis was, like you talk about with the culture, that kid is a D1 commit, and then you come back from playing in the DFW on an EYBL team, and you're still humble, you're still unselfish, you're still buying into everything that's going on. We've seen it plenty of times. You know, you're an OG. I'm starting to get some gray hair, so we've seen some of these kids go play in these shoe circuits and go back to their high school and like they want to be the show. They think they've earned something extra. but just credit to that kid and that program for, creating that culture.
I think the tone was set for him last year. It's ironic that you bring him up in the situation of how humble he is. 365 days ago, or roughly around that time frame, we saw him for the first time here. And I know Mass and I, we sat down and I told him to go take a look at this kid and you tell me who the best player is on that team. He was coming off the bench.
Yep.
Had no problem with it. And so, the fact that he's humble, that he understands, being one of the hardest workers on the team, but also one of the less talkative. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot to say, just kind of lets his work speak for itself. And so I think, again, when you talk about culture, he kind of fits into that mold as far as what they're expecting. And, we're just going to be who we are. We're not going to change, anything based on our background or where we kind of come from.
Absolutely. So before we end this segment, give me a bold prediction.
Wow.
A Tim's take, perhaps?
Ooh, wee.
Let's say, let me ask you this. And it's just a bold take, just based off what we've seen. Region 4, 4A, or Region 4, 5A, and 6A. Does the state semifinalists or state, whoever goes to state, are they coming from up north in that Central Texas area, or are they coming from San Antonio?
The state representative?
Yep.
The region has
so
intensified because you look at Josiah Mosley at Stony Point, straight up dude.
Mm-hmm.
They have product around them. When you start talking about who else they have with Button and
Landon Short.
Landon Short is a player, obviously, and they got Gauntlet, and other players that they're going to be able to throw in the mix in that situation. When you look at how strong Brennan is, then you look at Lake Travis with the additions that they have, brand new coaching staff.
Yep.
The coaches buzzing up there.
You look at Westlake.
You look at Westlake. We just talked about those guys and how productive they are. You got Buda Johnson. Then you have Harlan.
Yeah.
You have Reagan, that's always a solid program that's in it. Their best players flying around yesterday. Oh, man. You have San Antonio, Samuel Clemens.
I mean, it's crazy how deep this region is.
You have Steele there. I mean, Steele is kind of one of those teams that can muddy it up a little bit.
And when you're talking about winning one game, all these teams have a say in this. So I'll actually, you know what? Don't even answer that. The fact that you listed so many teams tells me how deep the region is, and that's just good for everybody involved down here.
Absolutely. And then when you say that, even from a recruiting standpoint, when you look at the list of kids that we just talked about or the programs we talked about, all of them are well worthy for college coaches to come take a strong look at, because all of them have something to offer, whether it be Division I, P5, mid-major, so on and so forth, all the way down to JUCO. You got a lot of depth that coaches need to come just take a strong look at what's going on here.
Absolutely. Well, follow GASO Tim on Twitter. He's been putting out his standouts all week. Follow Texas Hoops GASO, GASO Mass, GASO Blue, GASO Linden, myself, I from Hoopers. Just so much content. For somebody being from San Antonio, it's always a pleasure to get down here, and the city's in really good shape, and I'm excited to see what the high school season has to offer. So we'll talk to you soon.